Hello, cowards, and let me present to you Omnimumu, the best Mumu build you've never seen. Really quick, let me just start this video on the note that I am completely. My name in League is Cheesy Kaiser, spelt like this, and I play on the EU West server. I am currently level 37 and have next to no knowledge of this whole. I have no matchup knowledge, I have no macro knowledge, I have no knowledge. Even though I somewhat understand Mumu, I am still learning, so I'm not giving the best advice. Despite all that, I do genuinely believe this build is good, because after my placements in ranked solo, I was placed in bronze and got hard stuck there. I tried many different champions and playstyles, each with their standard build recommended online as the best one, and none of them worked for me. Making this Omnimumu build gave me a 100% win rate from bronze to silver, and I'm still climbing in silver with it, even though I am obviously no longer at 100% win rate. So, let's just show what I promised, which is Omnimumu. It is a rune page for Mumu, which still builds tank items, but in my very wrong opinion, it is the best rune page for Mumu. First of all, this is really fun to do. If you want to just pause the video, copy the runes, and go have some fun in the game, I recommend you do that. All that I'll talk about from now on is my process and logic behind creating this rune page, and other build stuff like items. At the very end, I will also want to talk about the Mumu buffs 11.17, how they affect this rune page. So as a quick comparison, here is the standard cringe Conqueror Mumu. It shouldn't come as a surprise that I don't like it, considering what I'm saying right now. However, if you look at it just thinking of a Mumu as a durable team fighter, it makes sense. You get the healing and damage from Conqueror, and then Omnivamp from Ravenous Hunter, free damage from Cheap Shot, more healing from Triumph, and so on. It makes sense, but using it, I couldn't find any success. I found myself always getting burst down in team fights because I wasn't able to stack Conqueror fast enough, and I really don't like the Domination runes as a secondary. It feels like a waste of rune space to me. For early ganks and fights, Conqueror is even worse because when you have low cooldowns on all your abilities, and your auto attack is very slow and weak, you just can't stack up Conqueror and don't have the damage to kill an enemy before they can flash behind the safety of their tower, and there goes your gold. Maybe it's just because I play badly, but I was not able to get any value out of Conqueror, and as such I started looking for alternate solutions. My first thought was, if they don't die fast enough, maybe I should build full AP. So here is full AP Mumu. By using Dark Harvest and then full AP items including Night Harvester, this full AP Mumu build is something incredibly fun. It worked sometimes, but usually not, and made me even easier to burst down, so it truly brought no solutions. The keystone, being Dark Harvest, was incredibly valuable to me, especially compared to Conqueror, but with a full damage Mumu build, it can't work consistently, because I don't have the game knowledge or skill to pull it off. So I had to ditch this build pretty quickly as well. This full tank Mumu build was my first success. It wasn't that successful, but it did solve my issues of getting bursted down and being more durable in team fights. Along with my new favorite item, Gargoyle Stoneplate, it just made me unkillable. The burst of health given by Gargoyle Stoneplate's ability is all I needed for team fights so that I could stay alive and enable my team to destroy the enemy team. The only problem with this build is that the Keystone gave me no real value. I tried both Aftershock and Grasp to similar results. They were both giving me around 1,000 to 1,200 damage a game and some defensive stats. The roots in the resolve tree felt very powerful, but the keystones felt useless. Notice how in both my AP and Takemoon builds, I was using the inspiration tree as a secondary. This is because I saw immense value in Futures Market, Freeboots, and Cosmic Insight, so I thought, why not try them all together? And that is how I came to Omnimumu. The main player here is, honestly, Futures Market. Being able to get my 1100 gold power spike consistently and safely every game is a blessing on a Mumu. Due to your slow clear and relatively bad early ganks, it sometimes isn't possible for you to secure that gold lead so that you can buy it early. But Futures Market gives you that for free. Now, when it comes to the other two runes, Magical Footwear gives you a free 300 gold spike, and even more importantly, permanent 10 movement speed over any other enemy jungler. I'm not sure how to put it into words, but 10 movement speed is an insane advantage. You can get to anywhere on the map much faster, you can stick to targets better, you can sometimes even follow a target and chase them down after they use flash without flashing. You can just stay on them, and then if you need, wait for your Q to come back and Q them again. It gives you much more security in your ganks, in your escapes, and in your general clear. Cosmic Insight just exists for the smite advantage and the possibility of an extra, or even 2 extra flashes in it. Getting a 76 cooldown on your smite instead of 90 is a huge blessing when you have a weaker clear. It means that early on I can smite the camps with no regrets to get to the scuttle consistently at 315, and it also means that when it comes to dragon fights and Baron fights or any fights in the jungle, I can safely say I have smite, and sometimes the enemy won't. Now, although the runes solve a lot of problems and are incredibly helpful, Omnistone itself isn't that much better. Like Grasp and Aftershock, it doesn't give me that much damage, only around 1000 per game. The main reason Omnistone gives me value, surprisingly, is Predator. Predator lets me roam between lanes and gank much faster than the enemy team expects, leading to a lot of free kills. After using Predator, I am able to not only get a damage boost from Predator itself, but with the short 3 to 5 second cooldown, I can switch between damage runes like Electrocute, Dark Harvest, even runes you would think are useless on a Mumu, like Hail of Blades. Hail of Blades is incredibly strong early game, and even late game gives you a lot of free damage. I am definitely guilty of not using all the unique keystones properly or to their full extent. It is pretty tough to learn what they all do when you haven't used them all on their ideal champions, and because Mumu struggles a lot by using the low cooldown keystones, so by that I really mean Summon Airy and Arcane Comet. I believe those are the 2 worst ones. You generally are able to either just wait them out or cycle through them so quickly that you still get some benefit from them. Just bypassing the cooldown you are forced to follow if you were to use Aftershock as your main rune is so valuable that I do think that Omnistone ends up giving me more value than any other keystone was giving me. I also have a lot of fun stories how, for example, in ganks, when I was tower diving, I got Aftershock just by luck, and partially the algorithm, but mostly luck, and that just let me tower dive and barely lose any health. Or I have other stories where level 3, me and Rengar, the enemy jungler, got to scuttle at the same time, and then I won the 1v1 duel before any laners could come from either team, just because I got lethal tempo into Hail of Blades. stacking together, so I was attacking Rengar 4 times faster than my normal auto attack speed, which was pretty funny. Omnistone obviously doesn't always work out, but it somehow is more consistent than the normal Mumu Keystones, just because of the early power compared to what Conquer, especially Conquer, but also Aftershock and Grasp give you, and it still scales well to late game because of how Dark Harvest scales with every Keystone. As secondary runes, I chose Overgrowth and Conditioning for general tankiness, and because I build Gargoyle Stoneplate, they synergize really well. I'm also a big fan of Font of Life. I have had games where I've healed 1 to 2k to my teammates, which isn't very accurate because a lot of that healing happened after the enemy was dead, but still is overall very useful. And if you see you have some teammate which needs a lot more help, Font of Life is great for early game, just keeping them alive, and it can make a difference so that your laner can stay in lane without needing to back, so that they can get a couple more CS, a bit more XP when you gank and kill their opponent. You don't need to go with Resolve though. The other option I would propose is Precision with Triumph for the healing and gold, and then either Legend Alacrity, Legend Tenacity if you are against a very high CC enemy team. That means a team with a lot of stuns or roots, and then the other option is actually Last Stand, because although I believe it gives you less damage than Legend Alacrity, it can still lead to significant differences. So if you want to queue into an enemy team, you're going to get a bit more damage out of you being damaged. So now let's talk about items, which are how you scale. I always recommend Sunfire as your first item and your mythic. It doesn't seem to make sense to me to build Frostfire. You need the extra damage from the Sunfire passive, since you're building full tank with this build. Your only potential AP item is Demonic Embrace, I'll talk about that later, and because you're just going to be building health and defenses, cannot go for Frostfire because the lower damage and the slow makes no sense. Boots, although I said build Sunfire first, that just means your first mythic or legendary item. Boots, I would recommend always getting tier 2 boots after Bami Cinder. So you're going to get Bami Cinder, then from your rune, get your free boots because you're going to get some early gangsta kills hopefully. If you don't get free boots, you can just finish building Sunfire first. But as soon as you have your free boots, you want to build either plated steel caps or mercury treads in most games, depending on if the enemy team has a lot of physical damage, in which case go steel caps, or magical damage, and crowd control, in which case you're going to go mercury treads. Sorcerer shoes can work and do work on Omnimumu, but with this build in particular, I like them less. I would really recommend them if you are going the standard Conqueror Omnimumu, or I just don't like them as much on Omnistone Omnimumu. For your second items, I would really say you have two choices, either Abyssal Mask if the enemy team has a lot of magic damage that you want to counter, or Bramble Vest if the enemy has a lot of healing and physical damage. I know I have Thornmail icon on screen right now, and that's because finishing Thornmail is an option, but I do believe just getting Bramble Vest and then Gargoyle Stoneplate is more effective in most matchups. The reason Demonic Embrace is also here is for when the enemy has a very mixed damage composition, so building either or in magic or defense, magic resistant defense doesn't make much sense, and if the enemy team is incredibly tanky like they have a Tahm Kench, a Leona, and a lot of other high health enemies, getting that maximum health burn on them from Demonic Embrace is very helpful. As your third item, so basically once you've chosen between those 3 second items, I would basically always build Gargoyle Stone Plate. It is incredibly helpful. Once you finish your Stone Plate, I would say finish the 2 items from the second item category that you haven't built. So for example, if you built Abyssal Mask second item, and then Gargoyle Stone Plate third item, you would try to finish your build with Thornmail and Demonic Embrace. The situational items are what you build in very specific matchups. For example, let's say 100% of the enemy team does magic damage and they don't have physical damage. So then instead of wasting a slot on Thornmail, which is primarily a physical defense item, you might want to build Force of Nature, which gives you a lot of magic defense. The polar opposite of that is if the enemy has all physical damage, no magical damage, in which case you might want to go Thornmail and then build Frozen Heart. Gives you a lot of armor and also reduces the enemy attack speed. The last item I want to kind of recommend is Warmog's armor. Even though I really wouldn't recommend you building it, it can be useful if either the enemy team has a lot of true damage you want to mitigate by just having more health, or if you're in a situation where you notice that you don't want to back. For example, if you know you're going to be stuck having to trap Baron, having to trap Elder Dragon, or having to just stay on the map for whatever reason, Warmogs helps you stay because if you don't take damage, you heal to full health without backing. So it can be useful, I don't recommend it most times. So the last thing I want to mention is next patch, which is in a couple days, Mumu is getting major buffs. The main change is that his Q will have 2 charges. This clearly makes his early clear better, as well as his early ganks better, and kind of shifts power away from his late game and puts it more in his early game, which is what a Mumu needs, and also why I made this build. The Inspiration Runes make his early game so much safer, and that is sort of the problem. Once you have that increased Q damage, that better gank potential, you don't need the Inspiration Runes anymore. That is why I really think that after the Mumu changes, Omnimumu really won't exist anymore. There's no real point in playing it. Which is sad for me to admit, but that's how it goes sometimes. So, since the time is short, I really recommend you all go and play Omnimumu while you can. And that's it. Thanks for watching my stupid Mumu build video.